It is October 16th, and look who got a haircut finally. I think this is the longest I've gone in a while for reasons that I won't go into, other than, of course, being extremely busy on the movie and an event coming up in a couple weeks. Right before the three of them left back to California, so Tuesday, I worked on the opening scenes, the two opening scenes, so I would have something to show Sky before she left. I sort of told her I would, and she was eager to see herself on quote film. So I showed it to her actually in the car on the way to the airport on Wednesday morning and didn't really get much of a response from her. And I sent a follow up email because I didn't want to say, "Oh, what'd you think about it?" And have not heard back yet. Not a big surprise. She's quite busy. But the point is, what is the point? The point is that yesterday, yeah, I still had the day off yesterday. So when I got back from the airport, throughout the day, I was doing other stuff, but I edited the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth scenes, which are all quite short. And in doing so, I could already tell my editor's brain experience that it feels like it's going way too fast. This sort of setup is not, it's not that it's not working, but it's definitely, it's making some big leaps that the audience has to process really quick. And so this evening I spent, I guess, a couple hours editing the next scene, which is I mean, not super long, maybe 2 minutes. It's funny because I've been talking in pages all this time. And when you get to the editing, of course, you turn that into minutes. And definitely, no surprise, dialogue heavy scenes cut a lot faster, move a lot faster on in minutes instead of pages. So I think this was, I don't know, if 2.5 page scene plus, and it feels like it's not even 2 minutes long. Maybe it is. Anyways, the point is, part two, that this explains what happened to a certain extent, and I feel like it plays pretty well. Continuity isn't 100% perfect in the looks. We've got like a mirror, and so you've literally got the mirror image of someone, and then you cut to her. And so I have to play with that. I mean, this is just an ultra rough cut, just an assembly cut, if you will, in a sense, just to see if we skipped any scenes, which I hope we didn't. I don't think we did. But just to feel like if you've got the story and it's going together. And I've already had a few ideas of how we can maybe not really stretch out in terms of padding, but add a little more context to those previous scenes that sets up the scene that I'm editing tonight. And at some point, maybe I was going to say I'll share some of my editing, but I don't know that I will. I might share some of the workflow. That might be interesting, but the editing itself, probably not, because that might ruin the film. Maybe I'll share, well, I'll record some of it, and then later on, after the film's out, maybe I'll release that because I'm sure there'll be a huge demand for it. The point is, part three, that by day, most of my work, a lot of my work is documenting people's stories at the place where I work, which is Peckham. I guess there's no, I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but we are a vocational rehabilitation training, not rehabilitation, strike that. Well, I mean, to some extent, I guess, but we train and we employ people with all sorts of disabilities, physical, invisible, mental, you name it, plus veterans and refugees and whatever. The point is, I've said that a lot tonight, they have a ton of interesting stories. And so my job is to interview them. I come up with a list of questions, I get their backstories, and I interview them. And then I put it together. what am I saying? Well, in the case of the interviews, you've got maybe 25 minutes. So that's this long. My hands are mirrored here. So you've got, I talked to him for 25 minutes, and the final video is going to be generally 3 to 4 to 5 minutes. Sometimes I talk to him for a little longer, but you get the point. You are going to throw out about 80-ish% of what you do, and you're not always going to have their interview in chronological order because that's not the way it works. And I've done other documentaries. I've done a feature-length one on a soccer team, and I've done some other ones. Anyways, so the big difference is, which is no surprise to anyone, in a script, you don't throw anything out at all, at least not early on. I should say in a feature film like this. So you've written and written and written for 2+ years, 2.5+ years, and you've got scene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ours has got like 103 because there's a montage and those are all numbered separately. But you put all that together in the predetermined order, and then you hope that it all comes together. Whereas when you do this storytelling I'm doing for documenting someone's life, not their whole life, but their story, you could take the real juicy parts that they say at the end and put it at the beginning for a teaser, and you could cut out this and rearrange that, and et cetera, et cetera. And I guess I hadn't thought about it lately because I've edited a short film, I guess, about 8 years ago, 10 years ago. But again, that was scripted. And so I'm just now appreciating the huge difference between editing something where you know what order it has to go in and you literally hope it works and you've got different camera angles and you've got coverage and everything, as opposed to someone's story, which may or may not be interesting. And it's my job as the editor and the storyteller to make his or her story interesting. And so you can selectively take out 3 minutes worth of what they talked about in 30 minutes. Now, you can also cherry pick and you can change their story. Our goal is not to do that. It's just to take the highlights of it. We don't have an agenda. We just want to tell the story. And I've always been able, maybe one exception, in maybe 70, 80 stories, well, more than that, but let's say 70 or 80 stories I've told since being at this company. I've always been able to tell the story, a compelling story about something about their life and, whatever, except for maybe one time or 2 times. And you do that by rearranging, like I said. But now that I'm editing this, you can't change anything. I mean, we're not going to do reshoots. I could add, voiceover and all those cheating things, inserts and stuff, which I do not want to do at all. But now that it's going together, when I was working on it yesterday, I wasn't super excited about the scenes. And I don't know if it had anything to do when you shoot in B-raw, as the black magic is called. It washes out. It doesn't look like a movie. It just looks really ugly, and that shouldn't matter, and maybe it doesn't. But today's scene was definitely better. I'm feeling better about it. But it's just interesting, the ebb and flow of feeling good, feeling not so good, feeling better. But really, until I get this whole, what if it's 90 minutes, 95 minutes, whatever it's going to be, put it together. And it has to go in the order that we shot it, but in scenes, obviously, you can't take 90 minutes of stuff and start jumbling it up like you can someone's story that they've talked to you about. And this is maybe super self-evident. Maybe this is going nowhere, not the movie, but what I'm talking about. But I thought I would just have this entry because it's interesting. It's sort of, it's a dichotomy, I guess, because it's scary in a way because I worked on it for so long and now we shot it and now I'm putting it together. And what if it doesn't come together? What if the story there isn't compelling? It's not funny. It's not heartbreaking. It's not, whatever it's supposed to be, sentimental, action. And there's really nothing you can do about it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Whereas if I've recorded 30 minutes worth of someone's story, I can almost always pull out enough sound bites to make it interesting, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes. So doing one by day and one on the nights and the weekends, I think is going to be interesting. I don't know that I'm going to learn anything or become a better editor because really, in the narrative film, it's just about really choosing the moments, choosing, the timing, the pacing, all that stuff. But again, you can't go in and rearrange things. Probably you can't change the dialogue. It is what it is. And if you don't have it, kind of out of luck. So just a bit of introspection, I suppose. Maybe not one of my more exciting videos, but something that, and I don't know that you can really gauge how it's going to be when you're writing it. It just, I noticed this in my previous movies. And I said it the other day that you can, as they say, you can make a good movie out of a great script, but not vice versa. And I have noticed that things tend to be maybe funnier on the page, more exciting on the page, more dramatic on the page, because in your mind's eye or your mind's ear, you hear the delivery, you see the action, you write the words, the race out of the house or whatever. And if it doesn't come out quite that way, it just turns it into something different. And it's going to be, I say this with only a hint of dread, it's going to be super interesting as I put this together just to really see if it works. And while I can't imagine that it won't, and it would be incredibly disappointing if it didn't, because then that leads to, maybe we should have worked on the script for another 6 months or a year and it would have been better. I can't imagine shooting this a year ago. It would have been a mess. So I guess that's why they say that a script is never really finished. Just like an edit isn't finished, it's abandoned, as the saying goes. So we'll see. I've gone on quite a while here, so I will let you go. But stay tuned. This is going to be a very interesting ride.